Hey everybody, Adam here. Today we're talking about product photography in Moto. And one of the things that I find is that professionals in any practice tend to make their own tools, right? If you go to a woodworker's shop, a lot of times he's made his own table saw with its own fence. He's got his own way of working with the tools. If you go to a photo studio, well, the photographer has his own set of lights and rigs and cameras and tables and rags, all the stuff that he uses to create the visual effects that he likes to create most often. And so instead of using Moto's default presets, what I want to do today is first learn how to make our own presets so that we can actually understand the process from the inside out. So here we are in the Layout tab of Moto, which is where we drop in preset mesh items and things like that. And down here at the bottom in the preset browser, in the Meshes tab, as you probably know, you have access to all of Moto's default assets. But I've actually added a folder here by going to Add Path in this little drop-down, and then selecting a folder that happens to be on my desktop called Meshes. And it's a pretty much empty folder, which is pretty boring. I do have this one test sphere. As you can see, I've named it 100 millimeters, which is important because in my practice, I usually have several of these of different sizes based on the type of project I'm working on. Anyway, I'm going to double click this and it'll drop it out here in my viewport, right? I can select that item in item selection mode, hit Shift A to zoom fit, and it'll be right there in my view. Now in another video in this series, we're going to talk about how to build this exact sphere, so don't worry, we'll get to that later. First I want to do something a little bit simpler, and that's to build a ramp. Any photo studio setup is going to start with a ramp, and we're going to use those all the time. So let's create that, save a preset, learn the process, and then we can create more powerful, more intricate assemblies. So let's hold the Shift key, head up to our tools, and click on the Unit Plane tool. It's going to create a 1 meter square plane. I'll hit the number 2 on my keyboard above the QWERTY keys to select the Edge selection mode. I'm going to select the frontmost edge on the Z axis, right? So that if I went to the front view, it's the edge that's closest to me. That's kind of an important thing. Hit the Z key on the keyboard. Click in the viewport, being careful not to drag. Just click once. And then I can drag down and out. Now, why are you doing that, you might wonder? Well, it's because I do a lot of shots that are very close to front views, almost a dead-on front view. And when you do that, you don't want for the floor to just end and to have black underneath it. So I actually like for my ramp to come down in the front, as well as going up in the back. All right, so there's the front. We'll select this back, hit Z, click in the viewport, drag this up, pull it on back so we got a nice tall ramp so we don't accidentally peek over the top in any of our views. Hit the space bar to drop that tool. And then I'm just going to deselect everything. Hit R on the keyboard for scale and just make this nice and wide so that our camera won't accidentally pick up any of these edges. Space bar to drop that. Select the front edge and the back edge, B for bevel, drag in the viewport, drag that out, and we get a nice round bevel. Now you might not see a nice round bevel on yours right away. And so come down here to your tool properties, in the edge bevel properties, set that round level up to something pretty high. Like I've got 8 here, and that's going to be plenty for us. When we're all done, I will hit the escape key to drop that tool, click off in the viewport to deselect, and this, my friends, is our very first assembly. This is ready to save, right? So if I just rename this, we could call this our ramp. And I can right-click it and say Save Assembly, right? Well, yes, but that's not ideal. Actually, if I save this, if I just say Save Assembly right now, it's going to save this mesh, yes, but it's going to save a whole bunch of other junk that I don't want. It's going to save, for example, it's going to save our entire render tree with it, which I think is silly, frankly. But we can get around that by manually creating our own assembly. And that is the trick to doing this right.